Hey everybody! In this video we're going to cover section 1.11, which is solving equations and inequalities by graphing. So in the previous section we have solved an equation like this by factoring or using the quadratic formula or completing the square. So now what does it mean to do it by graphing? So by graphing means that we want to be able to graph this equation y equals x squared minus 3 and graph the equation y equals 2x. And if there is a solution, that would be when the two graphs intersect. So let's see what that looks like. So if I graph, I'm going to set my axes first. I have x and y. And if I want to graph y equals x squared minus 3, now notice that this is the graph of a quadratic is a parabola. So this has a vertex at 0, -3. So I'm going to go down to -3, and that's 0. And if you want to plot some points, you can, but just remember that from a quadratic, when it's x squared, you have a parabola. So I'm going to choose -1, 0, and 1 just to see what it does. So -1 squared is +1, -3, I get -2, 0. We already know it's -3, that's the vertex, and at 1, we're going to get -2 again. So between -1 and 1, this is up at -2. And then we can draw our parabola to the best that we can. So parabola is somewhat sideways over here. So now, what about y equals 2x? So y equals 2x, that's a line with slope of 2. So our y-intercept is when we let x be 0. So when x is 0, you get 0. And the slope here, I don't need a table of values. I can just go, the slope is 2, right? So m is 2, which means 2 over 1. So the rise and the run. So I'm going to go up 2 and over to the right 1, and then up 2 and over to the right 1, and you continue over to the right. Or I can go down 2 and over to the left 1, down 2 and over to the left 1, and then we can connect the dots. Pretend that this is straight. I need to get better at this tablet thing. So this is our equation. And so notice that if I continue my parabola, they are going to intersect. So this, as I continue it up, it's going to intersect. And so what is that point? Is the question. So this looks like it's -1, -2. And so here, let's see. So by graphing, we can try to see what this point is. What's the x value? So I started at 0, and I moved up, what did we say? Up 2 and over 1. So up 2 over 1, and then up 2, again and over 1. So I'm at 2, and then up 2 and over 1. So this would have been when x is 3. So my solutions to this would be x equals -1 or x equals 3. Again, I don't have graph paper here, but I just did it by looking at the slope. So I went right from 0, 0, up 2 over 1, so that put me at 1, up 2 and over 1, so that put me at 2, up 2 and over 1, so that put me at 3, and that appears to be where they intersect. In WebAssign, you're going to have the grapher, or if you use graph paper, you'll be able to see it better. And so here we can also double check our work by solving it algebraically. So algebraically, we are going to try to factor. So I have x squared minus 3 equals 2x. That's what I want to solve. So it's a quadratic, so set it equal to 0. So I have x squared, bring the -2 over. So minus 2x minus 3 equals 0. And so this factors, right? Two numbers are multiplied on -3 and add up to -2. Those are -3 and +1. So that means that this factors into x minus 3 and x plus 1. And so we can use the zero product property and say then this is x minus 3 equals 0 or x plus 1 equals 0. So one tells us x equals 3 and the other one says x equals minus 1, which is what we got by graphing. So if you use graph paper, that will probably be better, and that way you can really see how the points match up. Okay, the other part, so if you've noticed in WebAssign, section 1.11 is very short. So just because we're going to get into graphing later, but there are some things that I did want you to look at. So say the other type of example is going to be, say I want to solve the inequality x squared is less than 3x plus 10. So now this is an inequality. But for the most part, we can do the same thing that we did above. I want to be able to graph y equals x squared, and I want to be able to graph y equals 3x plus 10. And then the part of the inequality is that we essentially want the parabola to be completely below that line. So when we graph them, we are going to be able to see where the parabola falls underneath the line, right? Because it has to be less than. So I'm going to have x and y, and when I graph y equals x squared, that's a parabola with vertex at 0, 0. And y equals 3x plus 10 is aligned with the slope of 3, so that means 3 over 1, rise over 1, and the y-intercept is b, so the y-intercept is 0, b, which in this case is 0, 10. So mine may not be all the way to scale, so we're going to go to, say that's 10, and the slope is 3, so we're going to go either up 3 and over to the right 1, or down 3 and over to the other side 1. And so notice that they are going to intersect. And so because it's an inequality, right, it's saying x squared, so all the points in the parabola have to be less than all the points on the line. So where does the parabola fall below the line, right? Y less than, the y values in the parabola have to be less than the y values of the line. So that would be in this area. All of it, not all the way. So from where they intersect there to where they intersect here. So not all the way. So that means we need to find what are those points where they intersect. And if you can tell, if you did it on graph paper, you might be able to tell right away what those are. But if you didn't, you can solve the equation. So where do they intersect? The intersection point is when they are equal to each other. So I'm going to say x squared equal to 3x plus 10. And again, it's a quadratic, so set it equal to 0. So bring the 3x over, so minus 3x, bring the 10 over, minus 10, and set it equal to 0. So two numbers that multiply to negative 10 and add up to negative 3. So that'll be minus 5 and 2. And use the zero product property, so x minus 5 is 0, or x plus 2 is 0, which means x equals 5, or x is equal to negative 2. So going back to our graph, that means that the point that we have over here on the left is minus 2, and the point that we have here on the right must be 5. And so the inequality, and notice that is less than, so it's completely less than, so we are not going to include those points. So my solution is going to be the part that is shaded in green. So right here, but not including those values. So I know I'm shading here because we're looking for the x values. When the y values on the parabola, the red part, are less than the y values on the line, the blue part. So the x values of my solution for when x squared is less than 3x plus 10 is x in the interval -2 to 5, not included because it's strictly less than. If it had less than or equal to, then those will be brackets. Okay, so I hope that helps with section 1.11. And like I said, I believe there are only 4 problems